Hello everyone, welcome back to Talking History. My name's Liz. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're all keeping well. If you are new here, you're very welcome. Come and join this little history club we're building. It's really nice. We're building nicely this little channel. And before we go any further, I hope you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. And also, before we get into the video, I'm going to do a little bit more rambling, so stay with me. I just like to know, are you happy with how I'm doing this channel, how this channel is going? Obviously, I'm doing it in the timeline of how the history has gone within the period. So obviously I've done the Anglo-Saxon period, we're in the Norman period, and we're heading towards the Plantagenet period, and then so forth. And I would like to bring in different people within that timeline. So I'd like to know whether you're happy with that, whether you'd like me to mix it up a little bit, whether you have any recommendations for any future videos. I personally would like to bring in the kings and queens of Scotland, because Scotland is just rich of history, and I must admit I don't know an awful lot, and I would love to learn more. And I personally can just spend hours researching history videos. I absolutely love it. So I'd just like to know whether you're happy how things are, whether you want me to mix it up, or just let me know your thoughts. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below, because I would love to read them. And just thank you so much for your continued support. And this little channel is growing slightly, and I love it. Thank you so much. Anyway, let's get on with this video. Today's video is all about Henry I. Enjoy. Henry was born in 1069 in Selby in Yorkshire, and he was born to William the Conqueror and Matilda of Flanders. And Henry would prove to be the most ablest of William's sons, and just like his father, Henry would go on to rule both England and Normandy from 1106. Now, there's very little known about Henry's younger years, and being the youngest of William's sons, he wasn't really expected to be king. He was possibly expected to go into the church. And Henry was given an education that both his father nor his brothers was given, and he was the only son of William's to be literate in both English and French, and he would go on to earn the nickname Henry Beauclerc, meaning good scholar. Now, Henry's path to becoming king wasn't without its challenges, and that all began after his father's death in 1087. So William the Conqueror, he left his lands and title of Normandy to his eldest son, Robert Curthose. His second son, Richard, had died in a hunting accident in 1070. His third son, William Rufus, he had received the throne of England, whilst Henry, the youngest, was given a large sum of money and his mother's lands in Buckinghamshire and Gloucestershire. Now, of course, the brothers, they weren't satisfied with what they'd received, and they would be at war with one another throughout their entire lives. When William Rufus was crowned king, he immediately confiscated Henry's lands. Now, Robert, he held on to his dukedom of Normandy, but he demanded some of Henry's money. Now, Henry, obviously, he refused to give Robert any of his money. He just had his lands confiscated. He ain't going to give him any of his money. But Robert made Henry an offer. Exchange some of your money to become the Count of Western Normandy. Now, this could prove to be quite the lucrative offer for Henry, and that would allow him to increase his power and his reach. So Henry, he rose to the occasion. He accepted Robert's offer, and he managed his lands well and independently. And naturally, this left both his brothers quite suspicious. So in July 1088, Henry made his way back to England, and he met with his brother William Rufus to persuade him to return his lands that was taken from him. And of course, William outly refused. So back in Normandy, their uncle Odo of Bayeux had convinced Robert that Henry only went back to England because he was in collusions with William. And the moment Henry returned to Normandy, Robert immediately acted on his so-called information, and he imprisoned Henry, and Henry was imprisoned throughout the winter, and he was only released by certain people within the Norman nobility. And although Henry had his title removed, he was still incredibly popular in Western Normandy, and this had left some animosity between Henry and Robert. Through all of this happening in Normandy, back in England, William had not given up on getting the Duchy of Normandy off his brother Robert. So William had convinced Conan of Rohan to turn on Robert. So Conan started a street battle between himself and Robert's supporters. Now Robert, he retreated in the midst of the battle, but Henry, he valiantly fought on, and he eventually, Conan was captured and he was taken to Rowan Castle, where he was forced up on top of the castle roof and he was pushed to his death. This was an important and symbolic message to anyone else who was looking to rebel. Henry's popularity had increased greatly, much to the dismay of his brothers. So a new agreement was reached between William Rufus and Robert Curthose, the Treaty of Rohan, an agreement to support each other, offer lands, but exclude their brother. Henry was left out in the cold, and war was imminent between the brothers. Now Henry, he began to build an army, but his older brother's forces, they had the advantage, and Henry tried to hold on, but he was quickly overwhelmed. Now over the coming years, Robert would go on to join the First Crusade, which then allowed William Rufus to gain temporary control of Normandy. And Henry, in this point, had appeared to have grown closer with William. And Henry attended a hunt with his brother on one fateful afternoon in the New Forest in August 1100, where William was fatally wounded with an arrow to the chest. Now Henry, he immediately saw this golden opportunity to seize control, and Henry rode to Winchester as quickly as he could to stake his claim. Now 4 days later, after his brother's death, Henry was crowned King Henry I of England at Westminster Abbey. Now Henry was keen to establish a strong and undeniable legitimacy to his rule. Henry had presented the coronation charter for his plans for the country, and this had included the reforming of his brother's church policies and appealing to the barons, ensuring that their property rights were respected. Now Henry made it clear that he was bringing in a new era, and he was reforming and bringing in peace and security, and he continued to win over much needed support and offer in lands and prospects, and Henry's change to the royal justice system earned him the nickname Lion of Justice. Now, Henry also secured himself a wife. On the 11th of November in 1100, he married the daughter of King Malcolm III of Scotland and Margaret of Scotland, later Saint Margaret, their eldest daughter, Edith, who would change her name to Matilda. And they had a successful marriage. Matilda, she fulfilled her duties as regent, and she produced heirs to the throne, and she involved herself in governance. And although Henry had a successful marriage, Henry had a number of mistresses, and he had at least 22 illegitimate children, and it was thought to be 13 daughters and 9 sons. And it was said that Henry had supported them all. Now, because Henry had so many mistresses, it's really difficult to identify which mistress is the mother to which child. Henry's illegitimate children were recorded are, right, bear with me, Robert, 1st Earl of Gloucester, Maud Fitzroy, Constance Fitzroy, Mabel Fitzroy, Elaine Fitzroy, William de Tracy, who had died shortly after Henry, Gilbert Fitzroy, and Emma, who is uncertain as she was born after Henry's death. And the mother of these children are unknown. Now, with the mistresses that were recorded, and first was Edith, who had a daughter with Henry, also named Matilda, who died in the White Ship. With Ansfried, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, apologise if I haven't, Julianne, Fulk, Fitzroy, and Richard of Lincoln, who also died in the White Ship. With Sybil Corbett, Sibylla of England, who had married King Alexander I of Scotland, William Constable, Reginald de Dunsterville, 1st Earl of Cornwall, Gungrid of England, who was a girl, and Rohise of England, also a girl. I wanted to say that those because it can be confusing whether it is male or female, but there's girls. Now, with Edith Fitzthorn, Robert Fitzedith, Lord of Oakhampton, and Adeliza Fitzedith. Now, with Princess Nest was Henry Fitzroy. With Isabel de Beaumont, I think I pronounced that right, apologise again, was Israel Hedwig of England. Come on. Any Harry Potter fans got that? Yeah. And Matilda Fitzroy. Oh, so that was named, that was the ones what was recorded. It's unknown whether he had more. Is quite possible. Henry had quite the high sex drive, and let's face it, there wasn't an awful lot to do back then, was there? Not as if you could just sit down and watch Netflix. No. So Henry had continued to solidify his power base, and Robert, he had made his way back to England after being in the First Crusade, where he discovered that his youngest brother was now King of England. Robert would soon start a little bit of chaos, and Robert and Henry met at Alton in Hampshire to negotiate some kind of peace between the two. And a peace treaty was made to sort out their disagreements, but neither brother could commit to the terms of the treaty. So Henry invaded Normandy in 1106 at the Battle of Titchenbury, and Robert was defeated. Henry laid claim to Normandy. The battle itself, it only lasted 1 hour, just 1 hour. This was on the 28th of September in 1106, and Robert was captured and he was imprisoned until his death in 1134. So Robert's illegitimate son, William Clito, had laid claim to the Duchy of Normandy, but Henry continued to hold on to Normandy and England until his death. And Henry's wife Matilda died in 1118. Henry's reign would continue to have problems. In November 1120 was the White Ship disaster. The White Ship sank in the coast of Normandy, and only 1 out of 300 people survived. And 1 out of those 299 people who sadly drowned was Henry's only legitimate son and heir, was William. Also to lose their lives on the White Ship disaster was 2 of William's half-siblings. Henry lost 3 children in that White Ship. This led to a succession crisis, given the period known as the Anarchy. And the crisis resulted in the only legitimate heir left was his daughter Matilda. The disagreement of the succession would go on long after Henry's death in 1135, leading to a devastating war between Matilda and her husband Geoffrey Plantagenet even, and the king's nephew Stephen of Blois. I never know how to pronounce that. I'm never sure how to pronounce that. So Stephen of Blois. I will try to learn how to pronounce it properly, I promise. So Henry, he chose to remarry in a hope to have more legitimate heirs, especially a son. On the 29th of January in 1121, he married Adeliza, daughter of Godfrey of Louvain. And this marriage, it wouldn't produce any children. So Henry was left without any legitimate male heirs. So he made the unprecedented step of making his barons swear to accept his daughter Matilda as the rightful heir. In 1135, Henry went to Normandy to visit his grandchildren, the children of Matilda and Geoffrey, and Henry took great delight in his grandchildren. But Henry died in Normandy on the 1st of December 1135 from food poisoning. Henry's remains were then sewn into the hide of a bull to preserve them on the journey back to England. Henry was buried at Reading Abbey, which he had founded 14 years earlier. And the abbey would be destroyed during the Reformation, and sadly there's no trace of his tomb survives. Matilda's cousin, Stephen of Blois, set sail for England from Boulogne, and he immediately claimed the throne of England as the nephew of the late king. Because Stephen was male, he was more favourable, and he was crowned King Stephen of England at Westminster Abbey on the 26th of December 1135, and this would begin a civil war between the cousins. And that's that. There's Henry's story. And as I got so many more planned, I got so many more videos to come, so please stay tuned, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like. And I really hope you liked the video. Like I said last week, let me know which brother's your favorite. Did you like William the Conqueror? Did you like William Rufus? Did you like Robert Curthose? Are you a fan of Henry the First? Let me know. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all soon. Take care.